There's a trap that many of us human beings fall into, and it goes like this: either this or that. We like to divide things into either or thinking, and today I really want to dive into how that can be a major trap for so many of us. So many of us so automatically fall into a mentality of this versus that, and it's so built into our way of looking at the world that we don't even stop to question it. And when I thought about this topic, at first glance, I thought, maybe there's not a lot to it, and that, the concept of, say, black and white thinking or either or thinking is a bit, I guess, a bit basic at a very superficial level. But when I reflected on it in a deeper way, I could see just how much of a trap it is when we look at how it plays out in so many different ways in our lives. So I'm all about seeking to help people. Gonna go again. When we stop and look at the way that we as human beings tend to think in mainstream Western society, some people like to refer to it as black or white thinking, having one of two options to choose from. Another way to describe this kind of thinking is either or thinking. And while at face value many of us can agree that black and white thinking is a bit of a trap and has its limitations to really think in such a linear way, we possibly don't really stop and look at how it's woven into our everyday ways of thinking, and how there are ways in which this either or mentality goes unchecked, potentially a lot of the time. And I just thought today I'd explore that and maybe bring up some of the ways that this kind of thinking is woven into our subconscious, unconscious patterns, and to call it out, so that maybe you are not so automatically drawn into it, because some of the ways that we look at the world are just running on autopilot. We don't even stop to check ourselves and look at the way we're thinking. We just run on the assumption that that's, I guess, effectively a truth. So some of the examples I give in today's video may be obvious ones, but I'm hoping that at least some of them have or pose food for thought. So one of the common ones that I thought of when I started to reflect on this topic was head versus heart, or emotions over thought. What do I go with? That's a common one that we speak of in everyday language, in our everyday choices. What do I go with, my head or my heart? Why does it have to be one or the other? Why do they have to be mutually exclusive, as in having to pick one over the other? Why can't they both have information and both be woven into the decision making? And to me, this speaks to one of the topics that I'm passionate about helping people unlock, is their intuitive capacity, and the misconception maybe that intuition or a feeling, a felt sense has to compete with analytical thought, and that they kind of fight against each other. When my sense is that that's not the way that our systems work, that we perhaps get the order wrong sometimes or give too much importance to the analytical mind in making decisions, problem solving, choosing a direction. I should backpedal on that. The problem solving part of the human mind is part of its natural faculty. The choosing the direction, making the final call on which way to go with a decision, that's where the thinking mind can maybe dominate a bit more than what it perhaps deserves to at times, and where intuition or a felt sense can be a bit more reliable if we're able to tune into it. So, in that example, head versus heart, or probably better, intuition versus thinking, there's space for both. In fact, the intuition or the guiding force is what generally comes first, but then the mind can take that decision to go down a certain path into action. So a great example of not having to go down an either or type of path. I've spoken in other videos also about being versus doing. What's more important for me, to be out there doing, or is it important for me to spend my time being in the moment? And this one, again, it's both. It's bringing together being and doing into the way we navigate everyday moments, that you can be doing something with a certain presence and a certain way of attending to the present moment, whereby you're being guided by a more natural way of flowing through that activity, that moment, than through the force that the human mind can sometimes put behind certain activities that is more heavily weighted into the doing mode. So again, like the yin and yang symbol, I think beautifully encapsulates, the being and the doing, well, both of them, the masculine and feminine energies coming alongside each other in that symbol, are highlighting that both can be present. And even in a state of doing, there can be that smaller circle, the smaller circle within the half that is the being, and even in a more being type of a space, maybe showing nurturance, showing compassion towards an individual, which is more of a being type of a space, there can still be a sense that I'm doing this, I'm holding space, I'm doing something for this person by holding that compassionate space. So again, being and doing can sit alongside each other. It's not either or. For love or money, another one. Do I choose what I love, or do I do it for the money? Now, this is a tricky one with the way society is structured, and quite often the career, the job that we've chosen to support ourselves in everyday life may not be the one that's most financially viable to give us a sense of passion and love and joy. But I'd also argue that we can sell ourselves quite short on that one, and that sometimes we just talk ourselves out of the belief that we can make money and be comfortable, etc., out of doing something that we love. It may be the case that the love and the money actually come from separate sources, so that you make your money one way and you get your passion and your fulfillment in another way. So of course that's one way around the either or. I either live life for money, or I live it for love and for the passion of what I enjoy. But certainly, again, thinking that you have to pick one or the other, I think most of us are coming to realise, if not already, that for money only is going to be a bit of a soulless type of experience. So don't underestimate how creative solutions and your intuition, when you lean into it, can guide you to ways where you can make money out of something you love. But often that doesn't come, going back to the first point, through just logical and analytical ways of trying to figure out how that will look. It can require a more open, felt sense of being guided to maybe unconventional ways of doing things than the way you've typically operated. And I think that example also goes into something that I'm very passionate about, again, around what is our reason for existence? Are we here to be materially comfortable, or are we here for a spiritual experience, an experience of something that transcends the material world? And I think in that dichotomy as well, we can get a bit caught up. Got to pick one or the other. Am I going to follow a path that's more spiritual and giving, altruistic, and sacrifice the material? Why does it have to be that way? Why can't you live a spiritual life and be very materially abundant? And I think a lot of teachers around spirituality and you may say New Age concepts, I guess that's a term I try and dodge a little bit because of certain connotations it has, but certainly teachers of more non-religious spirituality are more and more suggesting that having money and abundance for living a life aligned with spirituality and being of service to others, etc., don't have to be two separate or, again, mutually exclusive experiences. And so the term that I really like for these kinds of seemingly opposites coming together, I stole this from Neil Donald Walsh's book, Conversations with God. And for those of you who haven't read it, it's non-religious, I guess, spiritual teachings in those books. But he talks about divine dichotomy, or the phrase divine dichotomy is used in those books. And I think it sums it up, that there's this dichotomy, these two things that seem to be opposites and can't coexist at the same time, but can. And the example he uses in the book is one of creationism versus evolution, again, where science and religion have battled for many years around the origins of humanity and how we've come to be where we are today. And that example is used in the book, that why can't it be both? Why can't there be a spark, that a force, I guess, that started things off, but then there has been an evolutionary process as well? So I just wanted to leave you with a bit to reflect on, to think about ways that you might be limiting yourself with this either or way of looking at life. We're programmed from a very early age to look at the world in this kind of way. There's up, there's down, there's right, there's wrong, there's hot, there's cold. So dichotomy has been, or polar opposites have been woven into to our language from very early in life, and we can just default automatically to looking at the world that way. And I'm very passionate about helping people be free, and I can't help but see that those concepts of this or that, either or, can be very limiting, can limit our sense of choice in the world, and feel very restrictive. So I hope today the topic has opened you up and at least started to plant a seed, at the very least, for how you might be limiting yourself with either or types of thinking. Thanks for watching.